the trilobite, a primitive crustacean that could swim and crawl along the seafloor. Perhaps the first creature to have eyes. They looked out on a world crowded with organisms successfully adapted to life in the coastal shallows. As time went on, evolution increasingly favored the survival of those that could secrete a hard protective shell from the salts of the sea. Most of these early invertebrates have long since disappeared. But a few have survived to the present day, almost unchanged. This first known flowering of life was rich and varied, but like the lily of the sea, it blossomed rooted to the seabed, confined to shallow water.
Porcy Park is a public park. It's run by Middletown Township of Recreation. We do lots of field trip programs, lots of schools come here. In Porcy Park's fossil beds, they're late Cretaceous era, or upper Cretaceous, so that's about 65 to 72 million years ago. We find not really dinosaur bones. People expect dinosaurs when they hear fossils, but a lot of New Jersey at that time was underwater. It was the ocean. And so a lot of the fossils you find here are marine fossils, lots of oysters, some belemnites, which are kind of squid-like creatures. There have been occasionally some dinosaur fossils that were found, not complete skeletons, just like one bone that maybe after the dinosaur died it got washed out into sea, and so that's why we find it way out here.
While much of life was a lot different than how it looks today, our beloved clams and oysters go way back in time and pretty much look the same as they did. Cretaceous fossils of clams are fairly common in our area, especially oysters in ancient oyster reefs. Snails, haminoids, belemnites, and claws of ancient shrimp are also very common. And if you go to Porcy Park, which is on a little bit of an elevation, you can find sharks' teeth and other marine-related fossils there. So let's take a few minutes to explore Porcy Park and imagine we're living in the Cretaceous period, even though this particular area would have been a shallow sea and we would have been underwater. Just imagine that you hear dinosaurs off in the distance.
We're going to go out to the brook over there and use our tools, trowel, tray, sift through the sand, find any fossils that we can find.
So here in Porcy Park, if you go down to the brook and dig around in the mud, you might find not only shark's teeth, but lots of other marine creatures as well. And make sure you understand the regulations. You can't go in this park with a backhoe or a big shovel or a pickaxe, maybe a trowel, or you can use your hands, or you can pick through the mud and the gravel. And when it rains, these cliffs on one side of the brook yield a few fossils. So it's sometimes good to come out after a rainstorm.
So this is where we usually come in. Could find some fossils here, but usually we have to walk a bit further upstream. Up here you can see one of those walls where we have the different layers represented. The Red Bank Formation is the reddish-brown one at the top. Navesink is the grayer one underneath that. There are a few places along the creek where fossils are most represented. You have to go to places where there's been enough erosion of the creek banks that the fossils can wash out into the stream, and you can find them there. We will definitely find some fragments of pycnodont shells. Those are an ancient kind of oyster. Some Agarostrea mesenterica and other oyster species. If you look hard enough, you might find some belemnites, which are those cephalopods, or squid-like animals. Those are a bit harder to find, though. They're a bit less represented in the fossil beds. Throw out the log iron first, as we always do. And what do we got here? Look at that.
What is it?
That's shark's tooth.
Oh, put it in your palm. Let me see what it looks like. Oh, wow. So that's pretty tiny. Do they get bigger?
Most of the ones you find here will be small like that. We have found some bigger ones up to 1 inch long. Every time I take a class down there, we find dozens of oyster shells, brachiopods. There have been a few shark's teeth found. Last year we found about 12 shark's teeth, but they're always very exciting, very rare finds.
You found something, I found something within 10 minutes of being here, right?
Yeah. There was one ankylosaur bone that was found. Ankylosaurs were the big armored dinosaurs with the clubs on the tails.
Like a stegosaurus?
Like a less spiky stegosaurus, more armored. They look like tanks.
These are my tools. This isn't a backhoe, though.
You can only bring in just a trowel, a small shovel. You can't dig directly into the creek banks because that will contribute to the erosion. And I mean, when we go down there, you'll see there are trees that are hanging right over the side of the banks, like about to fall in. So that's as a result of erosion. So to reduce the amount of erosion, you take a small trowel, dig directly down into the bottom of the creek, and where the sand is, where you're standing. Further down that way, you might be able to see a place where the shells are stuck inside of the wall. You go out there to the fossil beds and you're stepping on them. There are like tons of them. Like it must have just been when they were still alive. There must have just been piles of them just all over the place in the bottom of the ocean there. A bit muddier over here. After every big storm or hurricane, the beds will flood, and we'll get a lot more fossils washed out of the side of the bed. So that's actually a good thing when we get a big storm, because it means we're seeing new things that weren't exposed before that. We take Boy Scout troops out all the time, so they just come in, they say, we want to take our troop out to find some fossils, and we lead them and show them around, show them what kinds of fossils they can find, and show them how to find them. You can like rent a tray and a trowel here, but you won't get like the guided instruction that you will in a tour or a field trip.
Bring a colander and make some spaghetti. Spaghetti with fossils, right? Mm-hmm.
Alright, so this first one, this is a Pycnodont convexa. It's the most common fossil that you can find in Porcy Park. These are ancient oyster, represented 65 to 72 million years ago. Most of the time, since it's been so long, you won't find them complete like this and intact. You'll find fragments of them, little thin like scrapings off of the shell. But those are still things. You're holding something that was alive millions of years ago, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, this is the most common one. It's got bottom half and the top half. They fit together like this, and that would have opened and closed. You don't always find them together. You usually find either one half or the other half. Though sometimes we do find shells that do have both halves still attached. This means that the animal was buried alive, and that's how it died, instead of sitting at the top, decomposing, being eaten by other animals around. This one right here is an Exogyra costata. Exogyra is similar to the Pycnodon in shape and size, but you see it's got these ridges on it, while the Pycnodon was smooth. It's Exogyra means twist, so it's got a twist at the back there. That's why we call it that. Yeah, so it's Exogyra costata. Also well represented, though less common than the Pycnodon.
Okay.
Okay.
Look at that. What is it?
This is Exogyra, the twisted oyster. And here we have Agrostria.
A mouse tooth.
That's right. Here's another one.
Wow.
So it's a piece of one that's broken.
Now, we came out here and you went to this spot. You didn't plant this here, and you bent down. Did you see something, or did you just say, this is a spot
I saw a spot of gray over here. I thought that might be a shell there, and there it was.
Wow. Wow, can I see it? Look at this. This is nice.
Our next one is another oyster, but this one is much smaller. It's called Agrostria mesenterica.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful. When we have field trips in, we call them mice teeth because it's easier for the kids to remember. It's got these little jagged edges on the front. Yeah, so it's Agrostria mesenterica, or mice teeth if that's too much of a mouthful.
This is called mouse teeth. And the real name is what?
Agrostria mesenterica.
Yes, Agrostica mesenterica. I'm pocketing this one.
Brachiopods are some of the smallest, like complete fossils that you can find. You can find them with both halves still attached most of the time, because whereas the oysters will decompose and drift apart, the brachiopods, when they die, they snap shut. And so we find them with both halves. There's some of the smallest ones. Some of them can be about the size of your pinky fingernail.
All right, there's something. Or was that something I already found?
All right, here we have a shark's tooth. We've found quite a few of them, but they are still very rare here at this particular fossil site. Other fossil sites, you'll find them in like piles, but here we don't get so many of them. There are a few different kinds of shark's tooth. Goblin shark is this one right here, the curved, long, thin tooth. We also have crow shark teeth. I don't think we have one inside of here, though.
Here. Look at this. I didn't even have to do anything. And look at that. It looks like the cranium skull of a small prehistoric mammal. But it's not, right?
Now that there's Pycnodont.
It's a who?
Pycnodont convexus, smooth oyster
All right, there's all kinds of stuff here. All right, I want to find a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Here we have a belemnite. This is the animal that was much like a squid. It's a kind of cephalopod related to squids and octopuses of today. This is just it has an internal shell called a rostrum in the back of it, so the pointy part of the squid, that's where this was. You've got a few pieces in there.
Yeah, little ones. These are clearly, down in here, dinosaur tracks. Are these dinosaur tracks?
This would be deer and raccoon.
We've got some deer and raccoon tracks.
There's one. That's a nice one, isn't it?
It's Exogyra.
Yeah. Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'm telling you, I'm gonna open up a fossil souvenir stand. There's got to be something in here.
Shell. Pycnodont. There's another.
That's an antique pattern.
That's
It is, isn't
the
it?
pattern, yeah.
What else? You're doing good, Mary. Thank you. Look at that. She's right. I found this right where she pointed. Pocketing it. It'll be part of my souvenir display. So And it just pointed out a couple of big ones right here. Hey, look at this. See that? That's a big one. And here's another one. Relatives of Clem the Clam. This is a nice collection of things that we've found. Even the squid.
And this is an exogyra that has both halves.
An exogyra?
Exogyra castata.
Man, that's beautiful. That's got both sides. So, see, I'm great at this.
So we've got a few pieces in here, some of these small fragments. Like
Yeah.
that one. There's another.
Okay.
Here's another. 72 million years. They're not going to be completely intact.
Yeah, really.
Last year someone found a shark vertebra. It was a big one. About that big. Round. Big round thing. And that one that you just picked up.
Yeah.
Interesting because that little tube right there.
Yeah.
It's made by a worm.
That's a fossil.
That's also a fossil. That's a trace fossil. It's a tube.
Mary, look at this.
Made by a worm.
See the worm? It's a fossil on a fossil. If you've never been to Porcy Park, what in the world are you waiting for? Now, another great park is Big Brook in Colts Neck and Marlborough. This is a stream that runs through a park and cuts through sediments that were deposited during the late Cretaceous. So we are in the ballpark of where we need to be. And you can see clearly the river and the mud, and they're just like Porcy Park. There's a little bit of a cliff, and a lot of the sand and the mud is red. And look what I found while I was there. I was so excited. It's called Exogyra, which is actually an extinct saltwater oyster. Exogyra lived in warm seas during the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. So I was pretty excited to find it. And remember, animals and plants are more likely to fossilize in mud than in sand, and one of the reasons is mud doesn't have a lot of oxygen in it. It'll encapsulate an animal, and the oxygen will decay the animal a lot more quickly, and so we don't see a lot of mud out near Sandy Hook. That's a little more porous, so there aren't as many fossils. Which is further evidence that we, New Jersey, were underwater. And we have had our share of dinosaurs here because the remains of dinosaurs and other vertebrates that lived on land have been found in the Cretaceous sediments of the coastal plain of New Jersey. The fossils of marine reptiles such as mosasaurs, giant crocodiles, plesiosaurs, bony fishes, turtles, lizards, snakes. But the most famous discovery of a fossil within this coastal plain sediment was a duck-billed dinosaur known as Hadrosaurus. Now, Hadrosaurus, if you want to see one, if you go to the Monmouth Museum, there is a replica, I believe it's a replica, skull of a Hadrosaurus. It was discovered in Haddonfield, New Jersey, hence the name Hadrosaurus. Now, Haddonfield, New Jersey, is across the river from Philadelphia, and it's one of the town's biggest claims to fame because it was the site of a great discovery, Hadrosaurus foci. And here is the plaque to prove it. Now, in 1858, someone discovered the fossilized remains of this dinosaur in a marl deposit in this small town. And just a footnote, marl or marl stone is a calcium carbonate or lime-rich mud, say mud again, or mudstone, which contains different amounts of clay and silt. And here's the man, William Parker Folk, who discovered the first nearly complete skeleton of a dinosaur in the history of the world. So needless to say, it was a great discovery. The bones of the dinosaur were immediately sent to the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia, and they have been there ever since, back in 1958. It was also the first complete skeleton ever to be mounted in a museum, so lots of people went to see it. It was a big deal back in the day. It still is, I think. Today, the site of the discovery on Maple Avenue in Haddonfield is a National Historic Landmark, and it remains in a fairly natural and wild state. A small stream, now called appropriately Hadrosaurus Run, twists and turns through the ravine and eventually empties into Cooper's River, which is nearby. And like some of the other parks that we just visited, the banks of the stream are somewhat steep and are made of a muddy marl, just like the substance in which the bones were found. So it hasn't changed much. Just like the parks in Monmouth County, fossilized shark's teeth and shells are usually found after a heavy rain. And if you're really lucky, who knows, maybe you'll find the dinosaur bone of a Hadrosaurus. And there's also a place to park and a fairly primitive trail along the ravine for folks to explore and look for fossils. But again, be aware of the rules. I think you can take a small trowel and you might be limited to 6 fossils a day, but don't be going in there with a drag line and a backhoe and a dump truck.
This is not the whole dinosaur, of course. It's just a part of it. It's the base of the tail, and you're looking at a dinosaur that was probably about 6 to 7 metres long and weighed about 3 tonne, so it's quite a big animal. What we're looking at here is the base of the tail. So just to my left there, you'll have the hip, and where the leg articulates into the hip, and this is the tail tip over this way, and this is the top of the animal here, and this is the bottom of the animal here. What we have here is a row of vertebrae, the backbone, running along here, and these are the splines that come out of the vertebra, and the muscles attached to the tips of these things. And right along here, this massive material here is actually part of the skin, the outer skin of the hadrosaur, which is, it's not unique, but it's very rare to find mummified skin and skin impressions, and we have them both. We've got the real skin on top and we have the impressions underneath here. It's told us a lot about what these animals look like in real life, which we can't get from just the normal bones, of course. And from this we've learnt that hadrosaurs, at least, don't have scaly skin like a snake. They have a pebbly type of skin. Their skin is made up of different sizes of pebble-like bones all together. What's special about this particular specimen is that it's articulated, for a start. And articulated means that all the bones are in the position that they were in life. A lot of people think that that's how we find dinosaurs and fossilised animals, but it's the exception, not the rule. Most times, animals, after they've died, their bones are scattered by scavengers or by water, and to find a complete animal is very special.
I thought that was interesting. So, what's important about the fossils preserved in the sediments of the coastal plain is that they record the advancement of the modern species. But they also indicate to scientists that there must have been a dramatic extinction of many species which occurred sometime between the Cretaceous and Tertiary period. Now remember, the late Cretaceous was about 65 million years ago, and then along came the Tertiary period. And the boundary between these two periods of time is well preserved throughout New Jersey. It's an important boundary because it marks severe devastation of marine fauna and the total extinction of the dinosaurs.
My name is Anthony Gardner, and I'm the director of the New Jersey State Museum. Our natural history collection represents some of the most significant scientific specimens really in the country. We have specimens ranging from a mosasaur skull that was an ancient sea creature that's actually 66 million years old. We also have a very vibrant and diverse slate of changing exhibitions, and I would encourage visitors to check out our website for a list of our current and upcoming exhibitions as well.